keep it here.
Hello, hello, everyone. Makawa Katida here, and yeah, from PK and Shackled. Yeah, it's been a while since I last spoke to my big brother, Maponga III.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm still handsome. getting gray and having fun while doing it, harassing other children. Yeah.
Yeah, no. We can see. But otherwise, are you good? Are you in good health? What's happening?
All things being equal, I'm fine. I'm back in mainland in Zim
Yeah.
and I've just put my nice studio in place. You can see how nice and clean it is, and it's getting there. Some few Apple machines and stuff. Yeah, it's looking very.
Yeah.
Very
No, it's good. It's good. So, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man. You are preparing to go to Namibia. You are on this tour, which is a great thing, man. So yeah, congratulations on that. When are you going to Namibia?
Monday. Monday I should be
Monday.
Leaving for Namibia. Yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. So, let's just shoot at it. I don't like wasting time. I don't like beating around the bush. I know that a lot of people said, "Oh no, I'm a daughter." So one of the things I did, I started this movement called Ezamadoda. Simply put, I don't want to discuss indaba zamadoda and quote scriptures. I don't want to discuss indaba zamadoda and go to the constitution. No, I want amadoda to talk indaba zamadoda and fix ourselves. So one of the things that has happened is that like you so when we started advertising this show, this chat, I got a few messages from pastor friends who said to me, Macau, so will ngani. But no, you and your friend Maponga are going to lead people astray and whatnot. I'm like, nonsense, guys, nonsense, absolute hogwash. Why can't we speak the way we want to speak? If it gets the results done, so be it. So let me ask you this question before we start. Are you still born again? Or where is your religious standpoint at the moment as a man?
Congratulations for your shows that I see are now coming up and your few interviews. I'm happy to see some progress happening on your side. Well done. I think we need more voices, your type of voices in the media conversations, so that we can have a robust conversation. And I'm saying so as an introduction to my comment, where if we are not careful, we are going to end up with a mainstream media which speaks mainstream ideas, which speaks mainstream manhood, which speaks mainstream womanhood, mainstream politics, mainstream economics. Everything must be mainstream. Because apparently when you've gone to school, you must come back as a defender of mainstream. And even your question is asking me mainstream.
What should I be asking?
No, I'm just putting it in context that it makes people comfortable to know that you are mainstream. And I don't know what it is that is so comfortable about mainstream when the divorce rates right now are sitting on 70 to 80%. Mainstream people are getting divorced. When poverty is 90%, mainstream. And people are still stuck and say, let's stick with what is mainstream. If Christianity means poverty, if Christianity means social silence, if Christianity means being a European man, if Christianity means being European rather than being African, if Christianity means, going to church on a Sunday and being a devil for six days a week, if Christianity means giving my money to a pastor while my mother and relatives are struggling, if Christianity means hanging around with other pastors who are claiming and proclaiming the second coming of Jesus and giving away of land because your land is beyond the river. If Christianity means that, and by saying these things, if Christianity means a white Jesus, if Christianity means, lack of African consciousness, if that is what you're asking me, that are you still a Christian? Then you are putting yourself in a very difficult position, because the fundamentals of Christianity, as I'm saying these issues above, unless Christianity can begin to address some of those issues, I think it would be safer not to include me in mainstream thinking. I would still presume in my fundamental background, I could still be functioning, I could still be using some of the software that I learned as a Christian. But the problems that I'm facing right now, I think we must be open and frank to say some of these issues Christianity does not want to talk about, and they will never talk about them. And to address them, even your subject that you are raising now, that in the Ezamadoda, for example, and what must a man do? And he wants his generation to continue. You go to Christianity, wait and pray. Then you're stuck in some space. Man can't give birth. A woman can't give birth. What are the issues right there? And you wonder the whole issues of ancestral, cultural, lock in as a point of reference and history where we are coming from. And hence, to ask me, where's my religion right now? I think my religion is with me. And I believe what I want to believe. I'm learning. I'm still a student of life. And I think I'll conclude my journey on my graveyard. You are the one who can say whether I was a Christian or I was not a Christian. But to uphold mainstream ideologies as a way of just... Of course, by the way, Mukatide, I can just brush you off for the sake of conversation and say yes, and then you have nothing more to ask after that, or I say no, then the next question will be why,
Yeah.
So, and I can take that dismissive corner just to get rid of argument. But if we are going to engage as men, we were small boys a few years ago, we have done that. You're a pastor's kid just as good as I am. We know that, and you reach a time when you look around and say, okay, 2% there, 5 there. Nah, count me out. No, not interested. And I think that's what maturity is all about. And if Christianity does not allow people to mature to that level where they can question things, they can argue points, they can argue the Jesus story, argue the Mary story, birth of Jesus story, argue creation of the world, 6,000 years, vis-a-vis millions of years, argue the traditions of Mary the prostitute and Mary the mother of Jesus, going to the grave to anoint the body of Jesus on a Sunday after burial. Then, and there's no traditions. If New Testament is addressing these things, why are we throwing away our traditions when actually the Bible would be very candid in sharing a story that umama kaYesu no Mary lo wayesifebe clean umzimba kaYesu. So tell me, when they were cleaning up the body on Friday, was Mary Magdalene closing her eyes while they were cleaning up a dead body of a dead man? I mean, who wants to talk about that before you are called profane and you've become a heathen or something like that? But in my world, where I live alone and I'm talking to a friend, I don't think I need to fear questioning things. And how can you have a Trinity that is all men? God is a man, Jesus is a man, and the Holy Spirit is a man. And then 3 men produce another man. Are we not promoting a homosexual environment here? Are we not producing a masculine, toxic, masculine conversation where the whole divinity is a masculine thing and women are created as an afterthought? Are we saying the Bible is teaching that? No. And you can't go there, Katide. Some of our members are too young and too soft-minded to begin to engage their minds at that level. So don't ask me Christian things, because I will say things that will make your friends say, awa, nazo. Sikuchelile ke ukuba lo muntu wako ke ngumuntu onja nawo suwile now, as if they are standing.
So a lot of people ask me, are you Christian? And my answer is very simple. I've become a spiritualist. Whether my spirituality involves God, Jehovah, or Amadlozi, or whoever. It's none of their business. I think we've grown, and I'm glad that we started this conversation with you mentioned the Holy Trinity and masculinity and whatnot. My brother, my dear brother, we have a problem in South Africa. Every 36 seconds, a woman is raped, right? Now, my question to you is, what role has this Western construct of Christianity played in perpetuating these things? They say South Africa is was 70 or 80% Christian or whatever. I don't know where they get the stats for, but that's what they say. That's what the church says. They take pride in it. How come South Africa in general has got such high crime levels? Daughter in South Africa, if we are such criminals.
If it was just crime, I would address it as crime. But South Africa is known for violent crimes. Let me qualify that. It's not just normal crime. Every country has got crime. But South Africa is a place where someone can come to take away your phone. And by the time they're done with your phone, they have raped, they have killed, they have shot, they have cut, it's violent. It's not just about someone hijacking your car. It's someone hijacking your car in a bloody way. And having done a bit of psychology, having done a bit of history, I'll give context to why South Africa has violent crimes. Without blaming or putting too much credit on our history that is tainted with corruption and violence. But you're dealing with a generation of young men, because 70 to 80% of the crimes happening in the country are done by men, however. So we need to address the issue of crime actually becoming an integral part of the masculine development of the boy child in South Africa. So you're dealing with a father who was taken away from his home, and he saw violence being done to his wife in his absence. He comes to a mine and he's reduced to a boy, and he's disenfranchised totally. And the sense of identity is totally lost. I'm working from the 40s right up into the 60s. You're dealing with fathers who were reduced from men to boys. And then the children born in the 60s are born in the absence of their fathers. This is a national issue, where the only father we had was the Catholic father of a church on a corner of a street somewhere. And then you have a fatherless society, because all the men were rushing to Johannesburg for work, or the greater percentage were running to Johannesburg for work. If not Johannesburg, the whole social structure was destroyed. We are once a week, of 3 ekuseni, mayibuya eMpumalanga, kwaMhlanga, ngene endlini ngo-10 ebusuku. And so you're dealing with a whole absent father. So these boys are born, and when they are born, those who are born in town are born with utata esenomfazi wesibili, because they were now in the mines and developing a new space, and men had to marry in town. So you have this complex social issue that people don't want to address. And these boys who are growing in the location again, what do they see? They see violence in the community. They witness the burning of people on the streets. They witness the shooting of people on the streets. The 1976 story is very clear. The Sharpeville massacre is very clear. The Davidton uprisings, clear. The whole Soshanguve and the entire South African community, black community in particular, is exposed not just to violence, but military violence. And this military violence escalates until it becomes black on black violence, where the young boys joined the struggle. They learned how to use petrol bombs. They started burning each other. And boys would start getting involved in these things. Women, disabled, are totally sidelined as this toxic manhood comes into space. Car thuggery comes into space. Boys have to survive in such a violent environment. Say, fast forward into the 90s, these boys of the 70s are now fathers also. And when independence comes in South Africa, there is no social restructuring. There's no psychological, social debriefing where you normalize a society and train and teach people to be human. Take note, on top of the violence we had already learned, we leave our children at home with Casper, the friendly ghost. We leave them with, Die Hard. We leave them with Tom and Jerry beating each other up to the walls, nailing each other's tails to the ground, pouring hot water on each other. And another generation is being brewed right there. Violent grandfather, angry, disgruntled, disenfranchised. Absent father, who is now a father himself. Abused, survived violence, was involved in criminal activities and violent activities during the liberation struggle. Bringing up a child born in the 90s, then 2000 and beyond. I'm giving you context so that you can at least, even if you look at yourself, your father having been a pastor, and you look around and say, how did you survive the drugs, the marijuana, the community violence, and all those things that became part of the daily bread within the community? It's just by God's grace that we are standing. And then, like we are whites, we stand and say, but how does South Africa become violent? How does it become violent? How did we develop this toxic masculinity? Beautiful words from the psychological classrooms in Vets and in UJ, where we are discussing, psychology. But are we really serious in terms of facing ourselves in the mirror and say, have we normalized violence? Are we aware of its source? And later on, do we have solutions on how to detox, reorient, and breed a new set of parents? Oh, don't worry, prison is waiting. So you walk out of line now. Instead of parenting you, we take you and we dump you in prison. You walk into Westville prison, 18,000 strong men locked up behind bars. 18,000. That's just one prison. 18,000. Where are their children? Where are their wives? What happens to the children of those 18,000 men? Give each one of them 1 or 2 children. 54, 60,000. Add the women on top and the new children they're making while the fathers are away. Another 120 plus. Look at the parents, the cousins and the brothers. So a ripple effect of 18,000 men in terms of societal impact, it still perpetuates the absent father mindset. I can go on and on, but I will stop there for now.
Okay, so interesting. So my question is, in this whole melee of building up of anger and violent crimes and whatnot, there was the church. And I'm sorry that I refer to the church, but I feel as if the church did not do anything. They are still not doing anything. And chances are, because we've got this utopian idea of heaven, the church will not do anything. Violent crimes against women and children will still continue by men. Now, I know that you studied in terms of theology and whatnot. Where did we miss? Okay, where did the church miss it? When was the opportunity for the church to say, we are going to play a positive role in empowering these young men? You understand? I go to so I go to these men's conference. I refuse to go to a men's conference now where we sit and talk about rape and guys say hallelujah. Stuff you, keep your God. We cannot emotionalize this discussion anymore. It must be firm, it must be definitive. So, question, where did the church lose the opportunity to not eradicate per se, because there's people who don't go to church, and there's violent people naturally, there's narcissists naturally, but in terms of minimizing or impacting men positively?
It's on various levels. The first level is a theological level, which the Bible and all Abrahamic faiths, they always deem men to be superior to women, and women being created as an afterthought of God. So a man was lonely, then God says, oh, oops, let us make women so that they can make men comfortable. So actually that theology on its own has a problem, together with the Trinitarian concept, which makes the whole heaven a masculine venue and women being viewed as dirty, as filthy. And when you read through the Bible, women are only referred to as prostitutes and harlots, and churches are happy to be preaching this gospel. So firstly, you want to discuss what I might want to call the theological problem of the text itself and pastors that propagate that message. Number two, you're looking at the misreading of simple texts. I'll give you the very first commandment found in the Bible. First commandment, before Exodus 20, Genesis 1 verse 26. Let us make man. No. The Bible is not saying let us make men, because this is a generic term for men, meaning also men and women. No, shut up and listen. The Bible is clear. The first literal translation simply says, let us make men. Because when you have made a man, you have protected the woman. The first agenda, therefore, of the government, let us make men. The first agenda of women, let us make men, because all the men come out between the legs of women. The agenda of the church, let us make men. Imagine if our total community would focus on making men. The streets will be safe. Families will be safe. I beg to swear, I beg to scare you. Mess up one man. Mess up one man and then follow him. How many women can a man rape? How much crime can one man commit? I mean, you've seen some of those stories where a man is raped, 112, 200 something, butchered, another 40 or 60. And you look at the destruction that one man can cause, and then you come to the book of Genesis, let us make man. No, this is generic. Hey, don't confuse me. The first commandment is the construction of men. And when men are solid, and sad to say the least to the church, our churches are 60, some of them 70%, women and children. And men are not part of the church. Men don't like it. Nah. Why? Because men, they feel that their ego, their masculinity, and etc. is bruised by the church. The pastor of the church becomes the husband. And what the pastor says is more important than what the father of the house is saying. And does the church want to lose that power and give that power back to the people who really must be given the power, that you are the man of the house and we as a church are going to help you to become a better man? No, instead, we lambast, we swear and we curse at these men who are non-believers. And we even preach sermons, obey your husbands in the Lord. You know, when your husband is not in the Lord, he doesn't deserve to be obeyed. You'd rather obey the man of God than obey your husband, because when you obey your husband, you are going against God. And then you find that 40 to 30 to 60% of our members, if not some in some churches, they are now single women. And all of them are gathering around the pastor who has claimed to become the superman in this community. Then you ask me the question, what is the church going to do? Does the church even know what to do with itself?
I don't think so.
I think you're right. I don't think the church has a clue to understand the role that God placed men in the community, in their homes to play. Instead, we have taken away priesthood from the men and given it to the pastor. We have taken away blessings from the father to the pastor. In some certain cases, even church pastors are getting people married without the fathers of those children, because the pastors have assumed the father role in those homes. And what is the divorce rate of those homes?
Scary. 50, 60%. Scary. But I'm glad you mentioned priesthood, which brings us to the next point of discussion. So my understanding of priesthood in terms of Christianity, and my understanding of priesthood in terms of the African cultural or traditional hierarchy, it's two different things. Chalk and cheese. And what is priesthood according to you, my kind sir?
And again, while we speak about these things, I'm offended to a certain level because Christianity seems to tiptoe its way into biblical text, pick up certain concepts, run with them to the New Testament, then lambast and destroy the Old Testament. Then we go back there again. When we find something that we like, we pick it up, we run this way. When you find what you don't like, you throw it away. I mean, money is good, so we take it with us, you know. This beautiful concept of, you know, the priesthood story. It's an Old Testament story. And by the way, for the sake of your audience, let's not be embarrassed. We can address this thing in a Christian form. You know, when you want to talk to me in a cultural space, I can shift gears and move there without losing my head. So I know the greater percentage of our audience is Christian. So let's put context to it so that
you'd be, as a matter of fact, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. A lot of people who watch me on any platform are not even Christian. They are people who have been enlightened, who want to find their truth. And I always refer, you know, I'm glad. Oh, by the way, audience, Joshua Maponga III has written a book called Find Your Truth. Get yourself a copy of that book. It's full of questions that you ask yourself every single day, but you're too scared to ask as a born-again Christian or a Catholic or a what, the labels that we have. We're too scared. So get yourself that book. Sorry for interjecting, my kind sir.
That's fine, my lord. And then you would find a conversation of priesthood finding its way into an African space and taking the biblical concept of being a priest and now walking to an African space. You're already looking at issues of utensils, for example. You're looking at issues of venue, for example, and you're looking at issues of rituals, for example, within Christianity and within an African space, and you begin to have conflict. But in my space, priesthood, therefore, speaks of the center of the economy, because within every home, ithala, mawukhuluma ngomsamo, for example, ithala is the bank. That's where seeds are stored. That's where the treasures of the homes are stored. And this is the African ideologies, by the way. We even have a bank in KwaZulu-Natal called Ithala. And Christians Christians have their money there. I wonder if they even understand what Ithala is. It is part of the furniture of Umsamo, where on top of the kitchen, right in the front side there, that's where you have your Ithala. And the priesthood is not just a matter of you coming into a space of worshiping, etc. African spirituality actually deems women as the priests of the home, quote unquote. Follow me carefully. Because this woman who came here is umakoti, wabanguye umfaz, wazalingani. She has children here now. And then she becomes a grandmother of this home. She is not born here, but she's the one who has come from outside. And now she holds all the secrets of this home. She is the owner of Indumba. She's the owner of this place where prayers of the family must happen. Imagine had we maintained and understood that men, you play outside there and gather things. But when it comes to connecting you with your ancestors and etc., it is not your father or your uncle who can do that. It is actually Ugogo who does that. And for me, a father being a priest of his home means that he brings the utensils. He protects the environment where his family can actually thrive in a spiritual way. What do I mean by that? Even ubaba wekaya cannot approach umsamo gugogo walapekaya. Who does that? The one who is a stranger amongst us, but who has birthed for us children and has become one with us. Now has become the mediator between us and our ancestors. Now, if you're a good Christian brother, how do you miss the concept of a Messiah who is outside of us, who comes amongst us and born amongst us? Now he becomes a mediator between us and the other side. So I'm not conflicted because I can see both parties clearly. The father being a priest of his house for me speaks of putting order in the house. Crimes in the old temples were discussed at the priest's house. If a man has killed a man, then you build a city of refuge. And the priests were responsible for those cities of refuge. So it was a judicial space. It was a commercial space. It was a ritual place. Jesus was brought to the temple to be circumcised on the 8th day. Who does the circumcision? It is the priest. One who takes this thing and he cuts it off and he dedicates it as a tool for holy use. So why would fathers worry that their children are being killed at Transkei, Nasesiska, and Akwandebele, and children are dying in the mountains? When in fact you, as a father of the house, it must be your responsibility to priest your own house and conduct these rituals. It is the priest again who became the medical center. The lepers, before you were quarantined into the bush, you came to the priest. He's the one who supervised and checked you to see if this was leprosy. I like something about that again. If you had seen the man behind the curtain, of course, let me become a theologian for a little while. If you had seen the God behind the curtain in the most holy place, you were then immunized to treat and assess lepers outside the tent, and you will not contaminate the leprosy. Everyone else who touched the man with leprosy, it could be contagious. But priests could be supervising and assessing priests for the whole day, and they would not contract leprosy. Why? Because they had gotten in touch with the men behind the curtain. I wonder if our pastors of today have been behind the curtain so that they are protected from the problems that are outside the court. You want to talk about priesthood? It's economy, it's religion, it's culture, it's financial, it's spirituality. But simply it means men understand their connectivity between two generations, the one that is past and the one that is coming.
Now, in the discussion, there are people who will say, yeah, you guys are propagating masculinity. And I don't even want to talk about feminists. But so there's a huge drive to say most of the social ills we have as a country are perpetuated by this notion that men need to lead women, and women must follow. I've never subscribed to that. I've never witnessed it in my life, but I can see in some, especially the TV show that I'm doing, I'm learning a lot about how culture, the culture of a town can have a negative impact on this leadership role that men need. Okay, let me ask you this question. Are we leaders or are we followers?
The role of men in the society is being redefined constantly by the political, the geopolitical, the colonial political environment, the religious environment. And you'll find that in as much as culture is dynamic in terms of being either progressive or digressing, we are moving away from ourselves constantly, and the influences that we are taking from other places, redefining what men must be. It must not only be one-sided, it's also redefining what women must be. It's not only stopping there, it's also redefining what children must be. I mean, the other day, children were children. Now, children by the ages of 16 are now called adults, and 18, they are now something else. So the redefinition of the African cultural, social structure has not been static. The political and international political space has influenced our barriers and boundaries of what we define as men and what we define as women and what we define as children. Therefore, by the time you're speaking of masculinity, either toxic masculinity, there's also toxic femininity also, and toxic childhood also. So if you are looking at this, let's balance it off. Everything is toxic now. Children are toxic, to say the least. Women are toxic, and men are toxic. Until there's a correct thinking to balance those, we may find that all of us are susceptible to destructive, digressive change. Sad to say that our developing society is only called developing as it is migrating from African to Eurocentrism. It can never be developing when it is moving towards itself. It can only be said it is developing when it is moving towards the white skin. Then the society.
But why? But why have we accepted the standard of development as a Western framework? Construct, instead of, I'm worried, Mapong, and this is the reason I've redeveloped this passion to speak to men. So, as an African man, if you are not, I refuse to shave, I refuse to cut my hair. You understand? And I believe that for me, that is part of being African. And people frown at you, look at you, that, hey, this 40-year-old, 42-year-old with long locks and a beard, has lost the plot. You understand? When you have such conversations, which are meant to develop my fellow black brother, I've got white friends, but anginandaba nabo, siyaphilisana, sibonga for bona, but angeke bakhulumele, angifuni nokukhuluma nabo on these platforms. And ibalulekile ukuthi our development should be our language, and we're not having these discussions. I can tell you now, no one will invite me to come and have these conversations or share my thoughts on African development from somebody who's been freed from no one will invite me. I'm telling you now, and I don't care. But this is my truth, and I'm sure this is your truth, and we will speak it. If we change, you said it earlier, if we change one man, imagine the impact that they will have.
The danger we kind of face, as I said in my introduction, it has been this idea of dominant culture, the dominant culture. Unfortunately, colonialism does not only come as a political tool, it also comes as a social tool, as a religious tool. And by the time you think you're a Christian, you're actually propagating a dominant culture. It's sad. And as men, I think we're grown up to say, if the Chinese had colonized us, all of us would have been Buddhists. Walk up to Libya, walk up to Egypt, walk up to Sudan, countries that were colonized by Muslims. What are they? Are they not Islam? So are we saying we're Christian because we are Christian, or we are Christian because those that came to colonize us are Christians? Is Christianity our preference, or is Christianity our political demise? Is this not just common sense for you to say, if you are born in a Chinese house, most likely you'll speak Chinese. If you are born in a Zulu house, most likely you'll speak Zulu. So the fact that you were born in the Pentecosts and in the underwear of the Queen of London, would you find it difficult that we are speaking in English? Would you find it difficult that we have become Christian? Would you find it difficult that we are doing white weddings? Would you find it difficult that we are putting rings on our fingers? Would you find it difficult that we are being called Mr. and Sir and etc.? Can't we just look at this thing in a more constructive way? And by the way, no emotions. No emotions. You don't need to become emotional about this. This is simple, lateral thinking, common sense at its best, that had we not received the missionaries and colonialists on the land, the question is, what would we have been? So you can never say as an African that I'm a Christian. That's not a true statement. Say I was colonized by the British and they brought Christianity with them, and their religion has become my religion. At the end of the day, the God of the master and the God of the slaves have become the same God. Whether he answers the slave more than he answers the master, let's leave that for theologians. But I think for men, we need to talk and say, are we Africans, or we are practicing dominant European culture, which we are now forcing on our children as a religion?
Can we say that the lack of identity or the lack of knowing who exactly we are is also confusing us in addressing, issues like GBV, issues like, financial abuse, issues like emotional abuse? It is not knowing ourselves part of the confusion. For example, I see a lot of young people in the community, and a young boy would be doing something wrong, and then Mom Kuza, he gives you this look, Yoguti, who the hell are you? Who are you? What gives you the right to tell me that what I'm doing is wrong? So the social identity, especially in the townships, I didn't grow up in a rural area, but the townships. So mina ngubaba, but then ubaba bami phela endlini yami. Outside, for all respect, no one gives a flying hoof who you are. You cannot. And is that, this whole confusion? And I'll tell you why. I ask these questions because even myself, you ask me who I am, I have no cooking clue, man. I know my spiritual standpoint, but in terms of being a man, I do not have a freaking clue who I am.
I will be very brief on this one. I'll give it as a hashtag, which I think you can work on for some few weeks. When it finally dawns on you what I meant, you will scream on top of your voice. It goes like this. Hashtag, a man who does not know himself can never say the truth.
Okay.
So if the source of identity is confused, it is altered, it's not authentic, there's nothing that will come out of your mouth and it is true.
So are you calling me a liar?
No. I said take it as a hashtag and just chew on it.
I'm joking. Yeah.
Immediately when you find a person who does not have clarity on their roots, clarity on their identity, clarity on who they are, then they open up their mouths and they say, I am this, I am that. Then we scratch our nose and say, really? Are you? It's like a child who does not even know who his father is. He says, I'm so and so son. And the mother giggles and says, if only you knew. Where there's not, hence we need truth not only on our lips, we need truth in our innermost chambers. And I think one of the sources of truth is identity. And once the identity of a person is tampered with, the rest of what they're going to be saying is lies and falsehood. So if we look at the African,
if we look at another thing,
say, define yourself as an African man, and you don't even have a clue who is a Katide. What are the benchmarking traits of a Katide? What is our roots as Katides? What are we known for, both in the cultural background and in the present background and into the future? What are the totems of the Katides? Why did they select these totems? Where do we belong in the societal structure of a nation and the society and the community? And when a child is born and he is told, you are a Katide, and something beats in their hearts that reminds them of who they are. It's like my grandfather looking at me and says, you are Maponga. And it's like he has just put the button on reset. Who are we? Where do you come from? What do you represent? What do you stand for? What's our background? Who are your ancestors? Why are you here? What are you wired with? What are you here to accomplish? What are you here to achieve? And all those things are brought into light by a simple question. Who are you? And if that part is not truthful, the rest is lies. Next morning you wake up, I'm a doctor. You're not a doctor, you're trained in medicine. I'm a teacher. You're not a teacher. You're just transmitting information. I'm a Christian. You're not a Christian. Just colonized as a Christian. I am this, me, I am that, me, I am that. All those statements that are with the I are just lies. Because without knowledge of identity, you can't say the truth.
But ask me to quote a verse. I'll quote a verse from Habakkuk. Habakkuk, you know, who reads Habakkuk, brother? You know, and that's my worry, that, you know, so there's something I call situational development. So at any given time in your life or in anyone's life, you've been in a certain situation, you know how to handle it. And then you get into the same situation years later, and because of the experience that you have, you've developed. But Tina, you know, you just throw verses at things, you just ask for prayers, which I don't object to. So yeah, that's a lengthy discussion, and
you must try and throw some of those verses when school fees is short and there's no food in the fridge. You must try during the time when you're quarreling with your wife and you are being challenged on your masculinity. Try and quote some of those verses. You may just discover that they won't hold water.
Yeah, no. We must develop. We must grow as people. You know, next point on the discussion is marriage. Hey, Baba, marriage, and like marriage and marriage with sex within marriage. You know, so. And I know that in our previous interview we touched on conjugal rights. Yeah. What is that? Is that a Western construct? Is that African? What is the expectation from men? Once a week, twice a week? You know, there's so much. And so
you're even lucky to be talking once or twice a week when you are talking of a colonized diet. When you are talking about Africans who have abandoned their ways of maintaining their masculinity. When you are talking of women who are now on other forms of contraception and the amount of changes that their bodies are going through. When you are talking about the societal, commercialized sex that is now there, the availability of sex toys and other things, and media pressure that is coming in with what men must do and what men must perform. Good men are this, bad men are... So you're putting men under immense pressure to even talk twice, 3 times a week, and etc. You are hoping that the men psychologically, anatomically, can actually get that man up. Many times the appetite, even the think or desire of that, becomes swamped in the midst of the many other pressures that the man is going through. So before we can even talk about the sexuality of men, we need to start talking about the psychological health of men. What is it that is depressing men? Because often you cannot use sex as your gratification tool when the man who carries it does not know it is there and it is functioning in a normal way. So is it okay to put pressure on the sexuality of men without fully understanding the pressures and the health that the men are actually suffering in our present day? I think we need to, again, in a men's conference, these are constructive ways of talking to me. I would say to a man, stop drinking too many tablets for erection, for example. Stop trying to beat your body to perform what it does not want to perform. There are other fundamental issues that you have to deal with. And then sexual expression becomes a benefit of a healthy person. And in that context, unfortunately, media and society and mainstream does not tolerate a man who cannot get his manhood up. And some of us men, because we don't want to deal with our issues, then we convert our sexual frustration into violence.
But how important is sex to men?
Depending where they are psychologically, depending where they are physiologically. Sex is an instinct thing for men, for example, to regularly work in that space, and it settles down hormonal issues and other stories. But of course, it would be nice if sex is expressed in a committed space where there is love, where there's understanding, and above all, where there's responsibility that goes with it. But when men are frustrated and sex just becomes a relief of stress, it actually begins to become a creator of problems.
Because that's a discussion that happens a lot in the socials, where sex is touted as a reliever of stress, and for pleasure. I understand the pleasure element, but how do you pleasure? How do you even engage in pleasurable things when mentally, when emotionally, when physically you're not right? A lot of men, diabetes, they've got blood pressure problems, they've got and we can't always say, yeah, men drink too much. There's other factors. I in my family, there's blood pressure issues, maternal and paternal. You understand? So there's many things, but the problem comes here, my leader. So if you're not getting it at home, you will go to there by, what you call this place, Bedford View. Apparently, there's high class brothels there. If it's too expensive, you'll go to Sunnyside. You'll go to these places. You'll go to Pulukwane. I think it's Long Street or something. You'll go to these places, and here I need your guidance as an elder and a leader. So what's happening is young guys are not getting it enough. So you're told, especially in the church, you're told, wait, zbambe, keep yourself pure for the right time. And yes, brother, you keep yourself pure. Yeah, when you get married, you can enjoy endless amounts of sex with your wife, and then you get into marriage, and that's not the truth. It's, as a matter of fact, it's far from the truth. So this notion that you must keep yourself pure after you get married, it's endless amounts of pleasure. It's a fat pile of nonsense. I'm saying this, and I hope the church stop teaching that. I know the Bible says sex before marriage is wrong or is a sin, but this, yeah. So you understand? Does that also add pressure to us as men? All your life you build up to this moment of promised pleasure, and then when you get into it, you're like, nah, man, that's not what I was told. That's not what I was promised.
I think in that line, education is important, both for men and women. And women must not use sex for the wrong reasons. Men use sex. And I think in a marital environment, in a married environment, it would be important for those that are running women's conferences also to highlight the need and or the want of sex within a marital space. You don't use it as a weapon. You need to understand the stress relief element, very important. You need to understand the bonding, very important. You need to understand the procreation, very important. You need to understand partnership and companionship, very important. You also need to understand the pleasure part, and fun time, and playing, very important. And I think if a woman looks at her man, depending where the man is and what kind of sex the man is, right? There's sometimes when a man does not need to be asked questions. I'm speaking as a man. I don't know about you. And those that are more romantic can also have their own conversation and say what they think. But this is me. There are times in my life where I have so much on my head. I don't even want questions. I don't want no church board. I don't want no this for that, buy flowers, run a tab kind of things. And yes, they have their places, those things. But if you say my way or the highway, this is the only sex language that I understand. I think many women tend to miss their opportunity of being this and that and that. I wrote a book, actually, a small little booklet entitled 8 in 1. where I looked at the 8 women of David and their characters and how they fed into the character of David. So you have the royal side, that is the Michal side, the Chagith side, the Abigail side, the Bathsheba side, and all these elements. If you look at each one of those women and the role in which they played in David's life, I'm not necessarily promoting a polygamy, but I'm saying a woman needs to know when to become an Abigail. When.
Sorry to interject, but you're not promoting polygamy. But if you had a choice, or if you could give an African man advice now, would you advise them to get into a polygamous marriage?
Do what works. Do what works for you. And without resources, it becomes a center of problems. So you need to think through that very carefully. And I don't think many of us men in the 21st century even have the software of running polygamous relationships. We just think polygamous relationships are only at 1 level or 2 levels, that is sex and children. But if you look at creating legacies, creating empires, growing these children in a balanced fashion so that you can produce responsible citizens, we may find many of us will fall short on that. So I would not want to promote something and that become irresponsible. But in what I was trying to emphasize is we tend to undermine our ability to express ourselves correctly when it is valuable to do so, because we have fine-tuned a certain perspective of how it must be done. This is how they were doing it on Generations. This is how they did it on Bold and Beautiful. This is how the porn stars are doing it. And this is what the church pastor was saying the other day, that it must be done like this. And worse still, this is what friends are saying, that it is happening in their homes. So why is it not happening in my home? You may have actually a perfect man in your house. When he has dealt with his problems at level A, he may just come with flowers when he's at level B. He may just book a holiday, which is roses in the tub at level C. You may actually find that he is only at one stage and at the other. But if you stick your heels that I'm only going to service him when he meets these basic requirements, the issue of sex becomes very complex, because it is psychological. It is not, it is physiological. It is societal. Sex is even economic. When a man is poor and the man's wallet is empty and he's worried about where will he get money to pay school fees, your hairpiece, car must be paid, roof that is falling apart, and he's got 1,000 things on his head, and the woman begins to say, Baba, what? I don't know if I'm making sense, Mchan. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No.
It's like you are, the issues you are talking about. Hey, akumeka kancane.
Baba, what?
And if you come into that space and you understand mentally and psychologically, where is he? And how best can I be of use in this space? I think it will create even more fun and create a more acceptable environment, more productive. You may get more out of your men and out of your marriage and out of your relationship than what you're getting right now. Just adjust. There's dancing time, there's playing time, there's commitment time, there's covenant time. I know women who have been divorced by their husbands because they've been too much Christian. Kunomsebenzi ekhaya. Mfazi athi angilapha emadlozini. Amadimoni lawa, amadimoni. Hey mfazi, thathi advice. Hambe ekhaya mfazi. Hambe ukha amanzi. Hambe uyobheka ipapa. Hambe uyofuna inkuni. Mase sebesenza izinto zabo ke. Usungacela nawe uthi hawu baba ngiyacela kakhulu, hayi angisasondeli ngapha. Mina ngizabe ngiklina amabhodo ngaphandle. Ngiyenza lokhu nalokhu nalokhu nalokhu. No umfazi ahle adonse isicathulo sobuvila. Athi angilapha. Ngeke nginginuke. Into zabo Satan. Kanti ukudla nguSatan, ukukha amanzi nguSatan, ukupheka nguSatan.
That's what they've been taught at church.
Don't even get involved. Don't even get involved. And by the time the pastor is done with you, you are a prayer warrior and a single woman at the altar every weekend praying.
Who's got hatred for men? Because you put... Anyway, so I know that
you put that in the heads of your children.
So, we've gone over an hour. In closing, I know that you're a very busy man and you're preparing to go to Namibia. And which other countries are you going to?
Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, then Zim. and then Ghana, then Egypt and Germany. Yeah, my schedule is getting a little bit hectic, but yeah.
Take me with. Why do you not take me with to these places?
Like Joshua, I'm going ahead just to go and scout the land. Then after I see what is in the land, I'll tell the other guys to follow. Yeah, but in closing, I would say, yes, find your truth as a man. Don't succumb to pressures that are coming from outside of what you need to be. Align yourself with other men. Share your problems as men. Stop negative narratives. Hey, let's stop perpetuating and sending wrong signals to each other. And the last most important thing I would say, which I've learned at an old age, learn to balance only two words: affection and aggression. Affection and aggression. When you are in a situation, ask yourself, do I need to be affectionate or do I need to be aggressive? You master those two words, you may just find that when a woman is shouting and screaming, she is not looking for aggression. She is looking for affection. When a thief is outside your house and etc., that's the time to use aggression. So aggression must be used to protect those that you love, and those that you love, you use affection. And in last one, never allow your erection to control your direction. I thank you.
Fantastic. Maponga, Kulu. I always learn a lot when I have a chat with you, and I'm glad that you spent your time this morning with us. And yeah, we'll share this to all the media platforms so that people listen. One of the biggest things that we're doing with these live sessions is we are documenting our conversations. My kids, go to YouTube, Google Joshua Maponga III, play, listen to what I want you to be in life. Not, I can't be shouting, So we're saying to men, listen to these conversations. If you have got questions, you can inbox me or inbox Maponga. I'm sure we'll spend some time in saying, but we need to change the narrative to be positive, to be uplifting, and in our endeavor or in our attempt to be good men, let's remember our roots.
Okay, what I think you can do is to open up a WhatsApp, get another SIM card or open another account, a business account, where we can say the conversation continues. And then men can contribute there. I think they will guide us also as to what are the subjects they want to be discussed. And we keep on sharing information. And sharing is caring. Only fools know everything.
That's a brilliant plan. So tomorrow I'm getting a phone and a SIM card, and then we carry on. Men need to speak and speak out. Thank you very much, Baba. Enjoy the rest of your day. Makau Katide signing out. And thank you to everyone who watched us. And I see there's a comment. Thank you, brother. But yeah, that's it. Baba. Adios.
Thank you.